Okay, so we have been discussing Shabbos and the depths of Shabbos, the beauty of Shabbos, and we're taking it step by step. And today, I want to really examine the prayers of Shabbos a little bit, and in particular, note a few curious things that we find specifically when it comes to the prayers of Shabbos that we don't find in other in our other liturgy. So we know the primary prayer that's said every day, really 3 times a day, is what we often call Shmona Esrei, although Shmona Esrei really just means 18, because it was initially the 18 blessings. On Shabbos, it happens to be, it doesn't have 18 blessings, it just has 7 blessings, as is the case on a Yom Tov, on a holiday. Also, we sometimes call it the Amidah, the standing prayer. So the Amidah, the Shemona Esrei for Shabbos, as I mentioned, is composed of 7 blessings. The first 3 are the same as the first 3 that we say every day. The last 3 are the same as the last 3, and it's that middle one that's where the difference is. We take out the 13 middle blessings that we normally have and replace it with just one special blessing for Shabbos, and that's the same thing that we do for a Yom Tov, for a holiday, and the same thing we do for really all the holidays, whether it's one of the Shalosh Regalim, the 3 pilgrimage holidays of Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, or for Yom Kippur, or for Rosh Hashanah. All of those follow the same pattern, except that there's one very significant difference, and that is that every day we have, again, the Shemona Esrei. It's 19 blessings. It started as 18, now it's 19. And it's the same words, basically, for morning prayer, Shachris, afternoon Mincha, and evening Ma'ariv. The same Shemona Esrei each time. The same thing is true of the holidays. On any given holiday, any of the ones we just mentioned, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, all the Shemona Esreis are the same. The Amidah prayer is the same. Shachris, Mincha, and Ma'ariv, morning, afternoon, and evening. However, when it comes to Shabbos, that is not the case. Shabbos is very unique in this way that we do not have the same Shemona Esrei, the same Amidah prayer for the 3 different prayers. For, I guess, really we start with Ma'ariv, the evening prayer, then Shachris, and then Mincha. Rather, it's different each time. And so I included on the source sheet a little bit of it, but in the evening, Ma'ariv, at the beginning of Shabbos, we say, Ata kidashta es yom hashvi lishmecha, you sanctify the 7th day for your name's sake. For in the morning, we say, Yismach Moshe b'matnas chelko, that Moshe rejoiced in the gift of his portion. And at Mincha, we have a different paragraph that we say, Ata echad v'shimcha echad, God, your name is one, and your name is you are one, and your name is one. And who is like you? Who is like your nation Israel, one nation, etc. And so each of the 3 tefillos, each of the 3 times that we daven, that we pray, we have a different paragraph in Shemona Esrei. And what this seems to indicate is that there is a process going on through Shabbos, or a journey, we might say, that although the entire Shabbos is holy, but there's different checkpoints or markings as we go along through Shabbos, and that is demonstrated and manifested in different blessings in the Shemona Esrei. There's another very subtle difference in the Shemona Esrei, which is that we have a paragraph that is consistent in all 3 Shemona Esreis. And it begins, Elokeinu, Elokei Avoseinu, Ritzei V'Mnuchaseinu, God, you should be desirous of our day of rest. And there's a very subtle difference from the 3 Shemona Esreis, of the evening, the morning, and the afternoon, Ma'ariv, then Shachris, and then Mincha. And that very subtle difference is that, and this is on the source sheet as well, we say, V'hanchilenu Hashem Elokeinu, and Hashem, you should grant us our heritage, or you have granted us the heritage with love and with desire of your holy Shabbos. And then we say v'yanuchu, and they shall rest, meaning the Jewish people shall rest. And then we say either va, vo, or vam. So in the evening we say v'yanuchu va, and they should rest on it. But the word va is feminine. We refer to Shabbos in the feminine, as if Shabbos is something feminine. In the morning, it changes. In the morning, we say v'yanuchu vo. We should rest again in it, on it. But vo is a masculine word, as if Shabbos is masculine. And then when we come to mincha, it changes again. At mincha in the afternoon of Shabbos, we say v'yanuchu vam, and they shall rest on them, plural, as if Shabbos is more than one Shabbos. It's multiple Shabboses. And this is very subtle, but obviously demands an explanation. What is going on? Why is Shabbos changing as we go through Shabbos? Friday night, it's a va, it's feminine. They should rest on it, feminine. Shabbos morning, it's masculine. And Shabbos afternoon, it's in the plural. Okay, so we have so far that, first of all, the theme of each Shemona Esrei changes. We have that the description of Shabbos changes from feminine to masculine to plural. And now let me pose one more question, and might seem unrelated, but it relates. And that is that we have a mitzvah, a commandment to use lechem mishnah, to take 2 loaves at each meal on Shabbos. And it's codified in the Shulchan Aruch. It's based off of the Gemara, the Talmud, but it's codified. And when the Shulchan Aruch tells us how to do this, the Shulchan Aruch says that one should take 2 full loaves and hold them in his hands, and he should cut the bottom one. He should cut the bottom loaf. That's how the Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Cairo, tells you how to, you have 2 loaves. Which one do you cut? He says cut the bottom one. The Ramah, Ramosha Isserlis, who wrote the great Ashkenazi posek, halachic decisor, who wrote glosses and corrections, not corrections, but changes for Ashkenazi practice versus Sephardic practice. He adds there, he says specifically Friday night. When the Shulchan Aruch says that you cut the bottom challah, that's specifically on Friday night you cut the bottom challah. But on the daytime of Shabbos, you cut the top challah. And he then adds, and the reason, it's based in Kabbalah. It's Kabbalistic. He doesn't tell us why. It's based in Kabbalah, he says. But in terms of how we do it, how are we to we have 2 challahs, what do we do? So says that Ramosha Isserlis, actually, that when we say that you cut the bottom one, that's specifically on Friday night. But on Shabbos day, you cut the top one. What on earth is that all about? Why does it matter? I cut the bottom one, I cut the top one, and make up your mind. Whichever one I should cut, I should be consistent. If you tell me it's the top, it should be the top. If you tell me it's the bottom, why is it changing from the evening of Shabbos, Friday night meal, to the Shabbos day meal? Which challah we're supposed to cut? So this takes us into a very deep idea. And it's I don't know about first, but it's expressed very early on in the writings of the Ramban, Ramosha ben Nachman. And when the Ramban talks about the idea of Zachor and Shamor, so the commandment to observe Shabbos appears in the 10 Commandments. And we know the 10 Commandments appear twice in the Torah, once in Shemos, Exodus, and Parshas Yisro, and then again in Devarim, in Deuteronomy, in Parshas Va'eschanan. And there are a few subtle changes in the way the 10 Commandments appear. And one of them is that in Parshas Yisro, the first time around, it says, Zachor es Yom HaShabbos l'kadsho. You should remember Shabbos to sanctify it. While in Va'eschanan, later in Devarim, it says, Shamor es Yom HaShabbos l'kadsho. You should guard the Shabbos to sanctify it. Now, the most basic understanding of that is that they are talking about positive commandments and the prohibitions of Shabbos. So remember the Shabbos means through positive acts, and guard the Shabbos means by refraining from negative acts. But the Ramban quotes from Reb Nechunya ben Akana, an early Tana, one of the early Tanaic sages, an idea that he considers to be Kabbalistic, Sod, the secrets of Torah, and he says that well, some of this is a quote from Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana, and some of it is on his own. He says that Zachar, when it says to remember the Shabbos, that is lizachar, for a male, for the masculine. And when it says shamar, when it says guard, that has to do with the feminine. And the Ramban says that if you pay attention, we actually find that Shabbos is sometimes referred to in the masculine and sometimes the feminine, besides for what I mentioned from the prayers that we say. But actually, if you look in various verses in Tanakh, Shabbos seems to change its the way it's referred to in the masculine or in the feminine. So in source 5, we have a verse in Vayikra, and there it says, actually here it's in the plural first. It says, Ishimo v'aviv tiro, a man should fear his mother and father. Ve'es Shabbosai tishmar, and guard my Shabbosai, my Shabboses, in the plural. Now that could just mean, every week, you add them all up, you have Shabboses, but or it could be that Shabbos somehow has a connotation at times that it's even one Shabbos is really more than one Shabbos. But then in the next source 6, so this is in Shemos, in Exodus 31, it says, Ushmartem es ha-Shabbos, you should guard the Shabbos, ki kodesh hi lachem, because he is feminine, Shabbos feminine is holy, and mechaleleha, those who disgrace, who desecrate it again, mechaleleha in the conjugation is feminine, most yumas, they are put to death. So again, here we have Shabbos expressed in the feminine. And then we have in the book of Yeshaya, in Isaiah, it says, Kol shomer Shabbos mechalelo. It says, whoever guards the Shabbos from refraining to desecrate it, mechalelo, is masculine, as if Shabbos is masculine. So actually in the verses themselves, in Tanakh, we see the same kind of change or differences in Shabbos that is expressed in the prayers, as we mentioned, by the words Yanuchuva, Yanuchuvam. You rest on it, feminine, it, masculine, and them, plural. And actually, that we find that in the verses themselves of Tanakh, that sometimes Shabbos is masculine, sometimes it's feminine, and sometimes it is plural. And so the Ramban says that Zachor, remember the Shabbos, is for speaking about Zachar, the male, the masculine aspect of Shabbos, while Shamor, guarding, is the feminine aspect of Shabbos. And he also says that Zachor, remembering the Shabbos, is in the daytime, and Shamor, guarding the Shabbos, the feminine, is in the nighttime. Again, a very kind of vague, difficult to understand what he's talking about over here. But that's what he says. He says that the main part of Zachor is to remember the Shabbos. That's an active remembering of Shabbos is in the daytime. And Shamor, well, let's actually not that simple. Shabbos is masculine during the daytime, and Shamor, Shabbos is feminine during the nighttime. Okay, now what does that mean? So the commentaries explain, Rav Dessler, others, that the concept of masculine and feminine, when if conceptually, is as follows: we view that which is masculine as what we call an influencer, a mashpia, something that gives, while that which is feminine receives and nurtures. So we see this. We see this on a biological level, right? That the man provides the seed and the woman receives it and nurtures it. We see it, kind of in a classic way where the husband brings home the wheat, the grain, and the wife takes it and nurtures it and makes it into something. But the idea of masculine also, we refer to God in the masculine because he is mashpia, he is providing to us. And so conceptually, the idea of something being in the masculine is the idea of mashpia, of providing, and the idea of something being in the feminine is receiving and nurturing. So Rav Elio Dessler says that Shabbos in the evening, Shabbos at night is, as we mentioned, is in its feminine aspect, right? In the tefillah and the prayers, we say Yanuchuva, you should rest in it, and we refer to it as feminine. And the idea is that on Friday night, Shabbos is feminine. It's receiving from us. It's up to us to infuse Shabbos with holiness by preparing for Shabbos, by making kiddush, sanctifying it. Shabbos is a recipient on Friday night. It receives its holiness from us. It doesn't yet provide holiness back. It is a recipient of holiness from us, and that's why it is in the feminine. When it comes to Shabbos day, so as we said in the prayers we shift, all of a sudden we say Yanuchu Vo. You should rest in it, masculine, and Shabbos is now taking on a masculine aspect, and that is the aspect of mashpia. Now Shabbos is influencing, is giving, and that after we've infused Shabbos with holiness, now Shabbos gives back to us. And Shabbos infuses us back with holiness, and therefore it's expressed in the masculine. And that's why sometimes we find Shabbos expressed in the feminine and sometimes in the masculine. And that, says Rav Dessler, explains why we have this shift in how we position the chalas. On Friday night, we position the challah on the bottom. The bottom is usually that which is receiving from on top. And so we position the challah on bottom because on Friday night, Shabbos is the feminine. It represents that Shabbos is receiving. The challah on bottom is the idea of receiving from us. So on Friday night, we cut the challah that's on bottom. On Shabbos day, we change. On Shabbos day, we cut the challah that's on top because on Shabbos day during the daytime. So now Shabbos is giving back to us. Shabbos is infusing us with holiness, and therefore during the daytime now, when Shabbos is in the masculine, so we put the challah that we use is the challah that is on top. Now go a little bit further with this idea. So we mentioned that the prayers of Shabbos are different than any other day, not just in the words, but in that they change as we go through Shabbos. Every other day, any weekday, the morning prayer, afternoon prayer, evening prayer, is the same. It's always the same. If and on holidays, it's always the same. Morning, afternoon, evening. There's no change. It's the same for the whole holiday. It's different because it's a holiday, but it's the same for morning, afternoon, evening. Shabbos is different. Shabbos, the prayers change. In the evening, first we have one paragraph, Ata Kidashta. In the morning, we have Yismach Moshe, and in the evening in the afternoon we have Ata Echad. So what are these different prayers? So there's an early work written by Rabbi David Abudraham that talks about the Siddur and different tefillos, and there he says as follows. This is source number 8. he says there are those who ask, why did the sages establish three different prayers for the three different liturgies for the three different prayers of Shabbos? And when it comes to Yom Tov, it's always the same. It's always the same one. So he says two answers, and we'll start with his first. His first answer is because on Shabbos we call Shabbos a kala, right? We like licha dodi likras kala, right? Go out to greet the kala, the bride. Shabbos is a kala, and so we start with the idea of ata kidashta, which means you sanctified, but it reminds us of the idea of kiddushin, right, of betrothal. And so Friday night is the betrothal. Shabbos is a kala, and we're sort of betrothing Shabbos, and so we say the prayer ata kidashta, you sanctified, which hints to this idea of this betrothal that we have. Then we say, in the morning, Yismach Moshe should rejoice with the gift that he received. And so on Shabbos, so in the morning, says the Abu Draham, it's when we had the betrothal, now is the wedding party. And it's the rejoicing of the bride and the groom. And so we talk about the celebration. And so on Shabbos day, we talk about Yismach Moshe, that Moshe should rejoice. And then we come to Shabbos afternoon, and we talk, and it says, Ata echad v'shimcha echad, God, you are one. And says the Abu Draham, that is hinting to the idea of the yichud, the seclusion that the bride and groom have after the chuppah, after the wedding ceremony. They then go and they seclude themselves together. That's the idea of yichud, that we are now secluding ourselves with God, which relates back to what we've spoke about previously, that in a certain sense, we said already last time, I think it was last class, that already at the beginning of Shabbos, we send out the angels, that it's because we're going to have our yichud, our secluded time with God. But this idea really points, has it more towards the end of Shabbos, the build up. And in the afternoon, when we say Ata echad v'shimcha echad, God, you are one, and your name is one, and your nation who's like your one nation, that's referring to this idea of the yichud, of the seclusion that we have at the end of Shabbos. But actually I forgot to mention that step even before, when we talk about at the beginning of Shabbos, Shabbos is in sort of the feminine, and there's a feminine aspect to it, that it's receiving the holiness from us. In the middle of Shabbos morning, so now it has the masculine aspect. It's influencing, it's giving us holiness. And then in the afternoon, we say Yanuchu Vam. It's plural all of a sudden. It's now two Shabboses, because it now has both of these aspects coming together, the feminine and the masculine, and they're joining together to provide holiness and blessing for the week, right? As we've spoken about before, Shabbos being the source of blessing for the week. And so the holiness of Shabbos is supposed to spill over and provide holiness for the rest of the week. I don't remember if we've spoken about this, but Shabbos is it's the seventh day, and the seventh day always represents the holiness that's within the other six parts. The world is the Maharal talks about the world is comprised of six dimensions, right? There's front, back, right, left, north, south, east, west, and there's up and down. So there's, a cube is six dimensions. So the physical world is six dimensions, and then the seven always represents that point in the middle point that infuses it with holiness. So the seventh day really is what is the neshama. It's the soul of the rest of the week, providing holiness to the rest of the week. That's the idea of the number seven. actually 8. We have Hanukkah coming up. 8 is the idea of going beyond this, sort of the boundaries of this world. That's even beyond. But that's what 7 is. So I guess, I think we'll discuss that even a little bit more another time. So I'm holding myself back from saying more about that. But that's what 7 is. And the idea is that the holiness of Shabbos spills out to the rest of the week. And so we have the masculine, the feminine aspect at the beginning of Shabbos. We infuse Shabbos with holiness. We have the masculine aspect in the middle of Shabbos, where Shabbos then gives us holiness. And those two ideas combined, they come together in Shabbos afternoon, and that's coming together to provide holiness for the rest of the week. Okay. Now the Abu Dram goes on, and he says another idea of this to explain the different, why we have 3 different prayers for the three different times of Shabbos. And he says Rav Chonam wrote a different reason. These 3 prayers correspond to the 3 Shabboses. There are 3 important Shabboses in our history. There's the Shabbos of creation, the 7th day when God first rested. There's the Shabbos of the giving of the Torah, because everyone agrees the Torah was given on Shabbos. So he's quoting a Gemara when he says that. The Talmud says, Hakomodim, everybody agrees Shabbos, Torah was given on Shabbos. So the event, the revelation at Sinai, Matan Torah, the 10 Commandments, happened on a Shabbos. That was the 2nd Shabbos of great significance. And then we have the Shabbos of the end of days, which isn't just one Shabbos, but it's what we call the Yom Shekulo Shabbos, the day that's completely Shabbos, the world to come. And these 3 Shabboses are being noted, expressed in the 3 prayers of Shabbos. So on Friday night, we talk about the Shabbos of creation. We say you sanctify the 7th day, the purpose of the creation of the world. You blessed it, and we quote a verse from the beginning of creation, that God completed the creation of the world. So on Friday night, we talk about the first important Shabbos in our history, the Shabbos of creation. Shabbos day, the prayers, the liturgy is Yismach Moshe Matnas Chelko. Moshe should rejoice in the gift that he has received, because he was a faithful servant. And it says, a crown of splendor he placed on his head when he stood before you on Mount Sinai. He brought down 2 stone tablets in his hand, on which is inscribed the observance of Shabbos. So we talk about how Shabbos and the 10 Commandments, but we're talking about the revelation. We're talking about that great day, that great Shabbos of Matan Torah, of the giving of the Torah. And then we come to Mincha. We come to the afternoon prayer, and we say, Ata echad v'shimcha echad. You are one, and your name is one, which says the Abu Dram, which speaks of the Shabbos of the end of days, when God will be one and his name will be one. Everyone will recognize the oneness of God. That refers to the time to come, the world to come. That's the 3rd Shabbos. So actually, the 3 prayers and the 3 checkpoints of Shabbos are really checkpoints in history. There are 3 important events that occurred on Shabbos, or that we call Shabbos. Number 1, the Shabbos of creation, the first Shabbos, the 7th day of creation. Number 2, the Shabbos of Matan Torah, of the giving of the Torah. And then at the end, at Mincha, we talk about the day of Yom, the day that's all Shabbos, meaning the world to come, which is referred to as a Shabbos. Now, what is the significance of all that? So Rav Shimshon Pincus has an essay about this, and he explains the process that we go through every Shabbos. And he begins with quoting from the Chovos HaLevavos, the duties of the heart, which some of you learned with me. We learned from Shar HaBitachon, from the treatise on trust. But he's not quoting from Shar HaBitachon. He's quoting from Shar HaBathina, I believe, which is the section on kind of discovering God. And he says that, and the Chovos HaLevavos gives two analogies to understand the idea that you can have so much that comes from one source, right? So we have, one source, God, and yet you see so much that comes from him. And he gives two analogies. One is sunlight that travels through a prism. It's one source of light, and then it spreads into all these different lights. But that can help us understand the idea that you can have all these different things coming from one source. And then he says another idea, another way we can view it is rain. Rain is one source of water for something, but it rains in an orchard or in a field or in a garden, and all of a sudden all different things grow of all different colors and species, all coming from that same source, from the rain. And Rav Shimshon Pincus wants to use these two analogies and build off of them to identify two different ways that a person can find God and relate to God. If you take a look at source number 9, so the Rambam Maimonides, when talking about the commandment to love and to fear God, he asks, how does a person come to love and fear him? And he says, here he's first speaking about love, and that's what we're focusing on. When a person contemplates his wondrous and great deeds and creations and appreciates his infinite wisdom that surpasses all comparison, he will immediately love, praise, and glorify him, yearning with tremendous desire to know God's great name. As David stated, my soul thirsts for the Lord, for the living God. So one way a person discovers God, finds God, and finds love of God is by looking at creation, looking at the beautiful world. It's clear that there's a creator, and that's one way that a person can connect to God. The second way we find in the Shema, in a Rashi really, where we say in Shema that the Haftas Hashem Elokech, you should love Hashem your God. It says, and these words that I command you should be on your heart. So Rashi comments that that's actually guiding us in how we come to a love of God. That the way you arrive at a love of God is that these words be on your heart. When you learn God's Torah, then you arrive at a love of God. And as Rashi says, as a result of this, as a result of learning God's word, you recognize God and cleave to his ways. You get to know him better, and you draw near to God. Now, Rav Pincus says that these two ways of finding God are analogous in the two analogies we gave of relating to God, or relating to the idea that God, can be one source and spread out different ways. He says, if you see a field full of flowers, so you understand all different colors, a beautiful orchard, you understand that it all comes from one source. The rain is what allowed these flowers to grow. But you don't actually see the source. You don't see the rain necessarily. You're not seeing the rain. You're seeing the flowers. You're seeing the results of the rain. But when you see light coming through a prism, you're not just seeing the results of the light. You're seeing the light. It's being spread out in different ways. Says Rav Pincus, when a person looks at nature and finds God in nature, so they are discovering God, but they're not actually seeing God himself. They're seeing the results of God's creation. It helps them understand, like it says in Tehillim, go outside and look who created all this. Yes, that's a way to discover God. You'll find who created all this, but you're not experiencing God himself when you see that which he created. But, says Rav Pincus, when a person finds God in his Torah, so that is coming into contact with God himself. The Torah is God's will manifested. It represents his midos, his traits, by which he relates to the world. And like the sages say, Torah is God. Now, it's not to say Torah, that's an expression in the sages, but it means you're encountering God when you encounter Torah in a different way than when you encounter nature. You don't learn about God through nature. You learn that God exists, maybe, but when you study Torah, you are discovering God. You are connecting to God. You are learning about how God operates. That's a more direct encounter with God. So Friday night, we talk about creation. Friday night is, as we said, the prayers in the liturgy, it talks about how God created the world. Vayechlu hashamayim v'aretz. God finished the creation of the world. And so we focus on God's creation, and we recognize God exists. We acknowledge God's creator of everything, but we don't necessarily meet him yet on Friday night, because it's just, there's a creator. We see a world, we recognize a creator, but we're not yet meeting him. Shabbos day, though, that's Matan Torah. That's the giving of the Torah. And right, that's the prayers for Shabbos day are the giving of the Torah. Through the Torah, we encounter God himself. And our relationship changes then. Rapinkus gives a parable to understand. He says, there's a princess who's set up to marry a powerful king. So before she meets this king in person, she might be fearful of him. He's very powerful. She's never actually seen him. So she knows she's marrying someone very powerful, but she hasn't actually met him yet. When she actually meets him, though, she's just swept away by his kind smile, and she experiences now tremendous joy. So on Friday night, we recognize Hashem as creator. So Hashem created the world, but we don't yet know him yet. We might be in awe and fearful. Now, I know that the Rambam said you could come to the love of God in this way. This doesn't necessarily jive perfectly with that. But Rapinka says when you're relating to that, when you look at nature and you say, wow, God is almighty, God is powerful, but I don't yet, but a person might then just be in awe and fear, but might not feel the love and see the kindness of God as well. Comes Shabbos day, and Shabbos day is when the Torah is given. When we relate to God through Torah, and there we meet him. We come almost face to face with him, and we experience the love and the joy of encountering God. And that's why on Shabbos day, the prayers are Yismach Moshe Matnas Telko. Moshe should rejoice in the gift that he's given, because Shabbos day is now a time of rejoicing. And then we come to Shabbos afternoon, Mincha. And Mincha, we said, is about the world to come, when God's name will be one, will be recognized by all. And what's our goal there? We might say on Friday night, we focus on God as creator, on developing our awe of God. On Shabbos day, we focus on God as the one who gives us the Torah, the attributes of God, the love and the kindness. At Mincha, we take it all together. And at Mincha, we're almost Shabbos afternoon. It's Shabbos is ebbing away. It's almost out, right? And we now have to start looking ahead to the week. And so after the afternoon is the time that we focus on the world to come, meaning we focus on what are we supposed to do with all this. We know God created the world. We know God gave us the Torah. But what's it for? What's the purpose? And we know, as we've spoken about, it's to get us to Mincha, to get us to the world to come. And so the Mincha time is the time where we take those lessons from earlier in Shabbos and we try to apply them, and we try to think about how that's going to infuse our week with more holiness, how it's going to impact us. And really, this journey of Shabbos is the journey of history, right? We start with the creation of the world. But what was the purpose of the creation of the world? It was created to get to have a place where God could give us the Torah. The purpose of creation is only realized when God gives us the Torah, right? A famous teaching of the sages, it says the Yom Hashishi, right? It was the sixth day, and the sages teach us that God was saying, I created the world for the sixth day of Sivan, the day that God gives the Torah. And that if the Jewish people will not accept the Torah, there's no purpose of creation. Creation cannot reach its purpose. And so there's a journey through history going on, but it's all connected. They're not disparate points in history. There's the Shabbos of creation, whose purpose was the Shabbos of Matan Torah, of the giving of the Torah, whose purpose really is the Shabbos of the world to come, to get us to the world to come. And so we've learned already that, Shabbos itself is a taste of the world to come. It's supposed to be a reminder of the importance of the world to come. On Shabbos, we also go through this journey of bringing ourselves sort of to that recognition. So just to summarize, we kind of discussed two ideas in explaining the transition, the journey that we take on Shabbos. So the first was that on Friday night, Shabbos is a kala, it's a bride. It has an aspect, a bechina, we call it, an aspect of feminine, of nukva, nekeva, and it's a recipient, and it receives its influence from us. We infuse it with holiness by all our Shabbos preparations and by our Friday night kiddush. And we say, Atah Kidashta. We say, God, there's a kiddushin, there's a sanctification that goes on. On Shabbos day, Shabbos is like a chassan. It's like a bride, a groom rejoicing with its bride. It's now a zachar. It's now a male, masculine, because it gives back. It gives kedusha back to us, and that gives holiness back to us. And then in the afternoon, these two, they combine the feminine and the masculine to provide blessing for the week. That was the first idea. Second idea, Friday night is the Shabbos of creation, like we say in the davening, we say in the liturgy, we talk about the Shabbos of creation. That's where we experience God, we recognize God, but more of like how awesome God is through fear and awe of God, because we're seeing His creation, but we're not necessarily seeing Him yet. When we get to Shabbos day is when we recognize the Shabbos of Matan Torah, of the giving of the Torah. That is where we encounter God through His Torah. We witness, we see God's love and God's kindness, and that's a time of rejoicing, of Yismach Moshe, a time of rejoicing. And we take these two concepts of the love of God and fear of God, and we examine how the purpose of all of creation and of giving of the Torah is really to get us to the world to come. How am I going to take these two lessons and use them during my week? That's what we do at Mincha time, when we talk about the time when Atah Echad V'Shemcha Echad, where God will be one, His name will be one, which speaks about the time of the world to come, when all will recognize God's oneness. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye. Thank you.